For centuries, everyone believed Stonehenge was built by Britain's first people. They were wrong. The stones stood there for over 4,000 years, silent watching. Empires rose around them. Empires died around them, but the people who raised those stones almost vanished. Then, in 2018, scientists opened ancient graves near Stonehenge. Inside were skeletons older than written history. And hidden inside those bones was DNA that didn't match the story historians had told for generations, because the builders of Stonehenge may not have been who anyone expected. And what happened to them may have been far darker than archaeology ever admitted. So what really happened? And why was the truth buried for thousands of years? Stonehenge is one of humanity's oldest mysteries, a circle of giant stones in southern England, built before Rome existed, built before the pyramids were fully complete, and somehow constructed without modern machines. For hundreds of years, historians believed these stones were raised by Britain's earliest farming communities, civil people, peaceful people. Farmers who crossed into Britain thousands of years ago. That was the official story. But the graves near Stonehenge told a different story. Some skeletons were buried with rare amber necklaces. Others carried tools from distant lands. One body had traces of metals never found nearby. These people weren't isolated. They were connected. Part of a world much larger than historians imagined. And then something changed. In the late 20th century, archaeologists began uncovering strange burial sites across Britain. Some bodies were carefully buried, others looked abandoned, almost forgotten. The dates didn't make sense. Entire populations appeared to vanish within only a few generations. Villages disappeared. Burial traditions changed overnight. Even the shape of homes changed. At first, researchers blamed migration, then climate change, then disease. But none of those explanations fully worked, because something else was hiding inside the bones: DNA. Tiny fragments preserved for thousands of years, fragments carrying the story of entire bloodlines. And when scientists finally decoded that DNA, what they found shocked everyone. The people living in Britain before Stonehenge were genetically different from the people living there after Stonehenge, not slightly different, completely different. Almost as if one population had replaced another. This is where the story gets strange. Ancient Britain was never conquered by Rome during this period. No records describe invasions. No massive battles were found, and yet, genetically, an entire population nearly disappeared. Scientists now believe one of the largest migrations in European history happened quietly, almost invisibly. Around 2500 BC, new groups began arriving in Britain from mainland Europe. Today, researchers call them the Bell Beaker peoples, named after their unique pottery. At first, they seemed harmless, travelers, traders, migrants searching for land. But within only a few centuries, their DNA dominated Britain. More than 90% of earlier British ancestry vanished. No one expected what came next. Because Stonehenge itself began changing during this exact period. New burial rituals appeared around the monument, new tools, new weapons, new social classes. Even the dead were treated differently. Some bodies were buried with gold ornaments, others were buried alone, almost discarded. Something had changed inside Britain, something violent, but archaeologists struggled to explain it. Because the evidence was incomplete, then researchers found a grave near Stonehenge unlike any other. A man buried with extraordinary wealth, gold decorations, stone wrist guards, copper knives. Objects so rare they transformed everything historians believed. He became known as the Amesbury Archer, and that discovery would open the door to an even darker mystery. Because the archer wasn't born in Britain, he came from somewhere else, hundreds of miles away, possibly farther, and buried beside him were younger men connected by blood, a family line. A new bloodline entering Britain during Stonehenge's final years. Suddenly, historians faced a terrifying possibility. What if Stonehenge wasn't built by one civilization, inherited by another? What if the original builders disappeared before the monument was ever completed? And if that happened, where did they go? Some scientists believe disease wiped them out, others suspect violent conflict. But there's another theory, a theory few researchers openly discuss, because it suggests the people of ancient Britain didn't simply fade away. They were replaced, quietly, systematically. And buried beneath the story, Stonehenge was supposed to tell, everything pointed toward migration. One clean answer, one simple explanation. But there was one problem: nobody could explain the children. Because buried near Stonehenge, scientists discovered graves containing children with mixed ancestry, children connected to both populations, and that question has never been fully answered. The official story sounded simple. A new population entered Britain. They mixed with local people. Over time, cultures changed, case closed, but ancient DNA told a darker story. Because the numbers didn't make sense, researchers studying skeletons from ancient Britain discovered something disturbing. The earlier population didn't slowly decline, they collapsed fast. Within only a few centuries, nearly all Neolithic ancestry disappeared from Britain, almost erased. No one expected what came next. Scientists began comparing DNA from graves across Europe, Spain, Germany, France, Britain, and the same genetic pattern appeared again and again. A powerful migration moving west across Europe, one wave after another, the Bell Beaker people. But then something changed. The deeper researchers looked, the stranger the migration became. These weren't just travelers, these were young men. Most were young, strong, healthy, buried with weapons, axes, daggers, archery tools, and many graves contained signs of status, power, violence. Some skeletons carried healed fractures, broken ribs, crushed skulls, evidence of conflict. This wasn't peaceful movement anymore. It looked like conquest, and buried near Stonehenge, scientists found one man unlike anyone else, the Amesbury archer. At first glance, he looked ordinary, but his grave shocked archaeologists. Gold ornaments, copper knives, rare stone tools, objects almost impossible to find in Britain during that era. He was wealthy, powerful, important. Then scientists tested his teeth, and everything changed. Chemical analysis revealed he grew up far from Britain, possibly near the Alps, more than 1,000 kilometers away. A foreigner buried beside Stonehenge with enormous status. This is where the story gets strange, because his arrival matched the exact moment Britain's DNA changed forever. And he wasn't alone. Nearby graves contained people connected to him by blood. A family line entering Britain during Stonehenge's final phase. Suddenly, historians faced a terrifying possibility. The people connected to Stonehenge's final years may not have been its original builders. They may have inherited it, taken it, claimed it, and that changes everything. For centuries, Stonehenge was treated like a monument frozen in time, one people, one culture, one purpose. But DNA shattered that illusion. Stonehenge existed across generations, and different groups used it differently. The earliest builders raised earthworks and timber structures. Later groups brought giant stones, then later populations transformed burial rituals again. It wasn't one civilization, it was layers, ghosts building over ghosts. And somewhere during that process, Britain changed completely. Researchers now believe the migration linked to Bell Beaker ancestry replaced nearly 90% of Britain's earlier genetic population. One of the largest genetic turnovers ever discovered in Europe, without written records, without kings, without history books. Only bones remained, and bones don't lie. But there was another detail researchers couldn't explain. Children buried during this transition carried mixed ancestry, part older British DNA, part Bell Beaker DNA. For a short moment, both populations lived together. Then the older ancestry almost vanished entirely. Why? Disease? War? Intermarriage? No single answer explains everything. And that question has never been fully answered. Some archaeologists believe new diseases arrived with migrating populations. Others suspect social collapse, competition for land. Violence too small to leave obvious evidence, but enough violence over generations can erase entire bloodlines. Quietly, slowly, without massive battlefields, without monuments to the dead. Only silence. And Stonehenge stood through all of it, watching one civilization disappear while another claimed the stones. But then researchers uncovered something even stranger. Many later burials near Stonehenge showed signs of elite status, as if the monument became connected to power itself, a sacred machine of authority, control through ancestry, control through myth. Because if newcomers inherited Stonehenge, they also inherited its mystery, its symbolism, its fear, and people obey what they don't understand. That may explain why Stonehenge survived while entire populations vanished around it. The monument became untouchable, a relic older than memory itself, and over time, its true origins blurred. The old people disappeared, their language disappeared, their names disappeared. Only the stones remained, massive, silent, impossible. Modern Britain still carries traces of this ancient replacement. Fragments hidden inside DNA, tiny echoes from people who vanished 4,000 years ago. Most never knew the story existed, because history was never written by those people. They left no books, no kings, no empires, only graves beneath the earth. And inside those graves, science found something terrifying. Civilizations can disappear completely, not mythically, not symbolically, genetically. Entire bloodlines erased until only fragments survive. That is the real mystery of Stonehenge. Not how the stones moved, not how they were built, but who vanished beneath them, and why nobody remembered. Today, tourists walk between the stones taking photographs. Children laugh beside monuments built before recorded history. Most never realize they stand above one of humanity's oldest disappearances. A silent turning point hidden beneath England's soil, because Stonehenge was never just a monument. It was a witness to migration, to replacement, to extinction. And somewhere beneath those ancient fields, more graves are still waiting, more DNA, more secrets, more answers, because the story is not finished, not yet. And somewhere, right now, beneath the hills surrounding Stonehenge, last piece of the mystery may still be buried underground, waiting for someone to uncover it.